Have you ever felt like you're holding your breath every time the phone rings, hoping it's your adult child, but also bracing yourself for what they might say or not say at all? Maybe it's the silence that hurts the most, or those quick conversations where you feel like a stranger in their world. If that sounds familiar, I want you to know you're not alone. So many of us, especially those of us in our 60s and beyond, carry this quiet ache when it comes to our grown children. We raised them, poured our lives into them, gave up sleep and dreams and Sunday mornings, and now that they're adults, something feels different. Maybe they've grown distant. Maybe they've made choices we don't understand. Maybe they're struggling and we can't fix it like we used to when they were little. That helpless feeling is real. And it's painful. But here's the truth, no one really says out loud. There comes a point where love looks different. It becomes quieter, less about guiding and more about letting go. Emotionally, that is. And that doesn't mean you stop loving them. Not one bit. It just means you start loving in a way that brings peace to both of you. That's what I want to talk with you about today. How to emotionally let go of your adult child while still loving them deeply and unconditionally. Because I believe that both can exist together. You can step back without shutting the door. You can protect your peace without withdrawing your love. And when you find that balance, it can change your entire relationship, not to mention your health and happiness. So let's start with something that may sound simple, but is often the hardest part. It's realizing that we are not in control. Not anymore. Now I know you probably already know that. Your mind knows it, at least. But there's a difference between knowing something and admitting it deep down. When my daughter was going through a really difficult time a few years ago, I told myself, she's an adult. She's going to make her own decisions. But then I'd still lie awake at night wondering what I could say to change her mind, what I could do to make her see the truth, how I could somehow reach into her life and fix everything again. Sound familiar? The truth is, we've been in the driver's seat for so long, it's hard to hand over the keys. We're used to being the ones who pick them up, cheer them on, set the rules, give the advice. But adulthood has its own rules. And our grown children, for better or worse, are now driving their own lives. We're in the passenger seat now, if we're lucky. Sometimes we're just walking beside the road, hoping they'll roll the window down and wave. When we admit that we're not in control, something amazing happens. The anxiety starts to lift. That constant buzz of what if? And why won't they? And should I call again? Begins to quiet down. You start to breathe easier. You stop reacting out of fear. And from that calmer place, your words become gentler. Your presence becomes more peaceful. Your child may not change, but your relationship with them can. And here's the thing, your peace matters too, especially now. You've earned a life that isn't defined by stress and sleepless nights. You've given your love, and you still can, but from a healthier place. A place where you're not carrying someone else's choices on your shoulders. Letting go emotionally doesn't mean giving up on them. It means you're finally choosing peace over control. It means you're trading pressure for presence. Now, once you've made space in your heart by letting go of that tight grip, you open up room for something much more powerful. Loving them just as they are, right where they are. That's easier said than done, I know. Especially if your adult child is living a life you never imagined. Maybe they've walked away from their faith, or married someone you struggle to connect with. Maybe they're dealing with addiction, bouncing from job to job, or just floating through life with no real direction. It's hard not to step in. It's hard not to think, that's not how I raised you. But what if, just for a moment, you shifted the focus from what they're doing to who they are? Because your child is more than their worst mistake. They're more than their lifestyle. They're still your child. The same little one who used to climb into your lap and ask you to sing just one more song before bed. That person is still in there. And here's where your love becomes a light, not a leash. When you love someone where they are, not where you wish they'd be, you give them something rare. You give them safety. You give them the freedom to figure things out without shame. And believe it or not, that kind of love is powerful. It's the kind that lingers. The kind that whispers, no matter how far you go, you're never unloved. You don't have to approve of everything. You don't have to agree. But you can choose love over judgment, compassion over correction. And when you do, you protect your own heart too. You stop wasting energy on battles you can't win. You start focusing on being the kind of parent your child wants to return to, not the one they feel they have to defend themselves against. One woman I spoke with recently shared how her son had cut off communication for nearly a year. She had tried everything: letters, voicemails, even sending his favorite cookies on his birthday. Nothing worked. Then one day she simply stopped. Not because she didn't care, but because she finally realized she couldn't fix it. Instead, she lit a candle for him every night. She whispered a prayer and she let go. A few months later, her phone rang. It was him. "Mom," he said, "thanks for not giving up." Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is step back and love them quietly, from a distance, trusting that your love still reaches them without all the words. You're not alone in this. So many of us are walking this road together, and you have the strength to do it with grace. Now, with that shift in perspective, that you are not in control and that you can still love them exactly where they are, comes another important change in how you speak to them. Because the way we communicate often says more than the words themselves. You see, the way we talk to our children, especially our adult children, can either build bridges or quietly push them further away. And the tricky part is, sometimes we're not even aware we're doing it. We speak from love, from fear, from frustration, from habit. But what we think is helping might actually sound like judgment to them. Think about the last time you spoke with your adult child. Was your tone soft, or did it have that edge to it? The kind that slips in when your heart is worried. Did your words invite conversation, or did they feel more like a checklist? Did you listen more, or talk more? It's not easy. I've been there myself. There was a stretch of time when my son would call maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks. And I found myself clinging to those moments, trying to squeeze in everything I was worried about. I'd ask, "Did you pay the bill?" Or "Have you been going to work on time?" Or "Are you still seeing that girl?" And guess what? Those calls got shorter and shorter. Eventually, I realized he didn't feel like calling home was peaceful. It felt like a parent conference. So I made a change. I let the small stuff sit. I started asking things like, "What's been making you laugh lately?" Or "What's been on your heart?" I told him more often how proud I was of him, even if I didn't understand his choices. I stopped trying to parent him, and I started just being his mom. And slowly, he started opening up again. There's something healing that happens when you feel safe with someone. And as parents, we have the power to be that safe place if we choose presence over pressure. Now, I'm not saying you should walk on eggshells or avoid honest conversations, but timing, tone, and trust go a long way. If your child doesn't feel heard or respected, they'll pull back. But if you create a space where they feel loved, truly loved, without conditions, they might start walking back toward you. One of the most important shifts I've seen with many parents I coach is this: learning not to be a one-topic parent. And what I mean by that is, when your adult child is going through a problem, maybe they lost a job, or they're in a rocky relationship, or they're not taking care of themselves, it's natural to make that issue the center of every conversation. But when we do that, they stop feeling like a person and start feeling like a project. They already know they're struggling. What they're not always sure of is whether they're still lovable in the middle of it. So instead of leading with questions or lectures, try leading with curiosity and kindness. Ask about their day, their favorite shows, a good meal they had recently. Make space for the light stuff too, not just the hard conversations. Because when every call turns into a parent-to-child intervention, they'll stop picking up. But when it feels like a two-way connection, they may call just because they want to hear your voice. Now, let's talk about another shift that happens when you let go emotionally. You start protecting your own peace. That may sound selfish at first, especially for those of us who've spent decades putting everyone else first. But it's not selfish to take care of your emotional health. In fact, it's one of the best gifts you can give to your child. When you're grounded, rested, and centered, you stop reacting. You stop obsessing over every missed call or social media post or rumor. You find calm in knowing that you're doing what you can, and that's enough. There's a quote I often share with mothers in my sessions. You are not responsible for the choices your adult child makes. You are responsible for how you choose to love them through it. That choice, to love without controlling, to support without rescuing, is powerful. And it's healing for both of you. I remember a mother I once worked with named Marlene. Her daughter had cut ties for 2 years after a huge falling out. Marlene had tried everything: emails, gifts, even reaching out to mutual friends. Nothing worked. When she came to me, her heart was broken, and she said something I'll never forget. I just want to be her mom again. Not her critic, not her fixer, just her mom. So we worked on letting go, slowly. She stopped trying to send advice or explanations. She started journaling instead of texting. She lit a candle for her daughter each morning. And she began rebuilding herself, walking daily, joining a small group, learning to smile again. A year later, her daughter reached out. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And Marlene was ready, not to fix everything, but to show love in a new, healthier way. Sometimes healing starts when we stop trying so hard and simply choose to show up as calm, loving, and steady. Like a lighthouse, not chasing the ship, but standing firm and shining light when they're ready to come home. You might be surprised at how deeply your adult child notices that shift in you. Even if they don't say it out loud, they'll feel it. And sometimes, that calm presence is what they need most. Not more advice, not more questions. Just love. Quiet, unwavering love. And remember, you can still pray for them, hope for them, hold space for them in your heart. But you don't have to carry their choices like a weight on your shoulders anymore. You've done your part. You've planted the seeds. And now it's okay to step back and watch what grows, not with fear but with faith. The kind of faith that says, I love you. I'm here. And I trust that your story isn't over yet. Letting go doesn't mean you love less. It simply means you're choosing to love smarter, with your heart open and your spirit at peace. And when you love from a place of calm, rather than control, you actually give your child something incredibly valuable. Freedom to grow, and the comfort of knowing that they are always loved, even in the messiest chapters of their life. So now comes the part that is often overlooked, but just as essential as everything we've talked about, remembering to love yourself too. You see, so many of us get so wrapped up in our children's stories that we forget our own. We wake up thinking about them. We go to bed worrying about them. We put our plans on hold, our joy on pause, because our hearts are tangled up in someone else's journey. But there's a life waiting for you too. There's laughter waiting for you in unexpected places. A cup of tea that tastes just right. A walk in the sunshine without the weight of 1,000 what-ifs. There are books you've been meaning to read. Friends you haven't caught up with. Crafts or classes you've quietly put on the shelf. because your mind has been elsewhere. And that elsewhere has been your child. Of course it has. You're a parent. You never stop loving them. But you are allowed to be more than a mother or father. You are a whole human being, with needs, with dreams, with a future that still matters. I once knew a woman named Denise. She was 72 when she finally decided to take a watercolor class. She had always wanted to paint, but she'd spent her life being the steady one, the caretaker, the planner, the fixer. Her son had gone through years of trouble with drugs and prison, and even though he was now in recovery, she still carried that weight like a second skin. When she stepped into that little art studio for the first time, she cried. Not because she missed her son, though she did, but because she realized she had missed herself. And as the weeks went by and the brushes started to feel familiar in her hands, something shifted. She started smiling more, laughing again. She didn't stop loving her son, but she finally started loving herself again too. That's what happens when we let go emotionally. We begin to heal. We begin to remember who we are outside of the roles we've played. And in doing that, we often find that we have even more love to give, because it's no longer coming from an empty cup. You deserve that. You deserve to live a life full of meaning, even if your child is still figuring theirs out. You deserve mornings that begin with hope, not heartache. You deserve to feel proud, not just of your child's journey, but of your own strength, your own wisdom, your own quiet courage. And maybe, just maybe, when your child sees that in you, it will inspire something in them too. Because sometimes, the best way to lead is by example, by showing them that growth never stops, that healing is possible, that peace can be chosen. So if you've been holding your breath, waiting for your child to come around, maybe today is the day you exhale, not in defeat, but in freedom. Maybe today is the day you say, I love them. I hope for them, but I choose peace for me. Because peace is not giving up. It's growing up in a different way. And if there's one thing I hope you take away from all of this, it's that you are not alone. There are so many parents in their 60s, 70s, and beyond walking this same path, quietly carrying questions they don't speak aloud, wishing for connection, for healing, for that feeling of everything's okay. I want you to know, just because your relationship with your child looks different now doesn't mean it's broken. It's evolving, just like you are. You are still needed, still loved, still worthy. Whether your child tells you every day or hasn't spoken to you in months, your love has not gone to waste. It shaped them. It protected them. And it still echoes in ways you may never fully see. So please, keep your heart open, but keep it protected too. And while you're loving your child from a place of peace, don't forget to nurture your own soul. Surround yourself with people who lift you up. Find little joys again. Say yes to the quiet things that make you feel alive. Write a poem. Dance to music in your kitchen. Call an old friend. Plant something and watch it grow. And if today is a hard day, if the ache feels too heavy, I hope you'll pause and remind yourself, you've already done more than enough. You are doing the best you can. And that is something to be proud of. If this message touched your heart today, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Whether you're in the middle of letting go, just starting, or still figuring out how to love from afar, your story matters. And someone else reading it might find comfort in knowing they're not the only one. Please take a moment to like this video if it brought you peace. And if you'd like more support, more comfort, and more encouragement in this journey, I invite you to subscribe to Strong Elderly Life. This channel is here for you, because your story is still unfolding and you don't have to walk it alone. Here's to healing without giving up, to loving without losing yourself, and to living your best life at any age. Take a deep breath. You're doing beautifully.